This episode of OWS Week is proud to present the 99er struggles across the U.S. for justice and equality. New York was the scene of demos targeting the corporate land grabbers and the One T-Day actions in opposition to the trillion-dollar American students' debts, among many others.
Those huge balls are weighing you down. Can you feel them?
Detroit, Francisco, and D.C. were rocked by rallies targeting GE and Wells Fargo shareholders meeting, as well as civil rights actions against racial profiling in America. We are the 99%.
Occupy Wall Street is a citizens' movement dedicated to reclaiming public space for learning, free expression, debate, and collaboration. In a country where corporate media regurgitates propaganda and disinformation from government, Wall Street, and military sources, OWS is a wellspring of real news about actual issues facing American 99%ers. One highlight of 7 days of 99er action across the United States was a New York City Second Line funeral march for the Gulf Coast on April 22nd, Earth Day, commemorating the anniversary of the BP Deepwater Horizon oil disaster. Second Line is a brass band parade, New Orleans, Louisiana style, combining traditional dance and jazz music. The march and rally were aimed at reclaiming the day from corporate greenwashers and returning to its radical roots.
Despite his public facade of opposition to the Keystone XL oil pipeline, during the same speech at the end of March, Obama declared that he will be breaking down the so-called bureaucratic hurdles to extending this pipeline to the Gulf Coast.
April 24th found OWS NYC in a land grab action at the Waldorf Astoria, where over 1,001%ers met for a major farmland investment event, which could seal the fate of millions of Africans. Some of the largest hedge funds, private equity groups, university endowment managers, and other high rollers met to salivate over the next big thing in finance, making money from food and water shortages.
The folks inside the Waldorf today are promising 20 to 40% returns, even without growing anything necessarily. Susan Payne, the CEO of Emergent, actually said at one point to investors that they could just let the land sit and not grow anything on it whatsoever, even after kicking people off, and they'd still make money. So although these are being pitched as development opportunities, it's really about making money at the end of the day. It's about taking resources away from the folks on the ground who need them, who depend on the land for their livelihood, and instead putting that money in the pocket of Wall Street investors and hedge funds here, and that's something that I'm not okay with, so that's why I'm here.
The event organizer was HighQuest Partners, a heavy hitter in the hedge fund market of big agro, biotech, and biofuel companies, promising 25% returns on investments in areas of the world with incredible food insecurity.
In most of the world, the small farmers are those who are sustaining their families and staying out of poverty because they have a small farm to feed their families, and this land grabbing just completely undermines the lives of women, the lives of communities, and that concerns me. So I'm here for that reason, but I'm also here for the reason that I think ag business kind of thinks it's a really important savior of the world, and I don't think it's doing a very good job at it, and it's actually impoverishing more people than it's enriching, and that's a big problem as far as I'm concerned.
OWS groups allied with food justice and environmental activists, along with African students and communities, to expose the cabal planning another inhumane financial bubble.
So millions will be Pan-Africa
And over in Washington, D.C., protesters occupied the Justice Department with a rally and civil disobedience action centered on political prisoner Mumia Abu-Jamal, who many say was railroaded on a murky murder charge in 1981. He was an activist and radio journalist who became president of the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists and a member of the Black Panther Party until October 1970. His original death sentence was vacated in 2011 based on several trial issues, but he remains in prison despite international support for his release. The DC action was based on a time-honored labor slogan, "An injury to one is an injury to all," and called American justice to free Mumia and other political prisoners, reform immigrant and death penalty policies, and solitary confinement and torture, and fix society's ills instead of jailing people. Across the country, April 24th found clergymen, unions, and labor groups joining Occupy San Francisco to blockade the Wells Fargo Shareholders Conference and highlight the bank's criminal behavior towards students, homeowners, immigrants, prisoners, and many more of the 99%. The action led to an unprecedented early closing of the meeting.
If you see people trying to break through, go over there and try and block it. Ho ho! Student debt has got to go! Hey hey! Ho ho! Student debt has got to go! Hey hey! Ho ho! Student debt has got to go! Hey hey! Ho ho! Student debt has got to go!
Occupiers slammed right on through to April 25th with actions across the country marking one T-Day, the day total amount of student loan debt in the U.S. topped $1 trillion. Marking a momentous victory for Wall Street, which protesters pointed out would be popping champagne bottles and eating caviar while debt-burdened students and graduates lug around $1 trillion ball and chain. Student debt has reached a morally and economically unsustainable level. Yet another of those bubbles Wall Street loves to blow.
Occupy Detroit is, shall we say, the seed from which some of what is going on with the 99% spring came from. Occupy Detroit is based on broad level, nonpartisan activists that wish to invoke and inspire economic and social reforms in the sense that we see that there are injustices according to our rights being taken from us, stolen in many cases, and also through the apathetic or non-active approach of the normal citizens or normal residents, and even looking at how people's voices are being stolen.
Now, what was the goal yesterday? What was the focus of the action and the goal?
The goal yesterday was to bring light on the fact that we have major corporations such as General Electric that collect money from people, and the service they provide back sometimes is compromised, and obviously they are not being taxed by the government at the same level that the people that they serve are being taxed. Many times they're able to skate by without taxation and even get rebates back on having done good work with the people that they serve. However, it should be part of their charter to take care of the people that they serve. It's like getting a reward for doing something obvious and not being penalized. They're not paying into the system to make sure that the system works for people. They're getting paid to continue doing what their charter is to do.
Heading Taking over to the decaying heart of the once great American automobile industry, Detroit, Michigan, on April 25th. Buses loaded with 99%ers converged on an old building on Michigan Street from Green Bay, Wisconsin, Boston, Massachusetts, and other areas.
Boston in the house! We got Chi-Town in the house! Is Detroit in the house?
Need some more of the agua over here.
The once vacant restaurant space has been turned into a vibrant activist center.
It was in total disrepair. There was a lot of folks who did a lot of amazing work as far as rehabbing the place, making it so we could actually utilize the space. I mean, there was dust, 2 inches thick on the bottom floor. There was rats. There was a lot of stuff. But yeah, they did an amazing job. They rehabbed the whole place, all volunteer work, and just to give us the ability to utilize that space and have a place where we can come together, break bread, have discussions, have meetings for free, and it's a great space.
The Wobbly Kitchen, staffed by members of the iconic union IWW and well known in Detroit for their work at soup kitchens and activist events, welcomed the 99ers with good food and hospitality.
We have a group inside the IWW called the Wobbly Kitchen. And what we do is we cook food for unions on strike. We cook food for, like, Occupy Detroit, different social groups that are actually doing something. So if they're going our way, we tend to go with them. Now, what they didn't know is that their Occupying Detroit turned into a 24-hour soup kitchen. First time I pulled up down there, some of the folks that we knew from some of the parks around here, we feed the homeless and forgotten workers on occasion, like every 2 weeks. And I seen some of them, they say, "Jim, what you doing down here?" I said, "Well, we brought some food down." And they go, "Oh, then we know what to do." So they lined up behind the truck and helped me carry the load up to the tables, and we developed some friendships here in Occupy Detroit.
Out-of-towners united with local occupiers, unions, and other groups to march on, occupy, and disrupt the General Electric shareholders meeting.
The movement is a unifying of all people from all walks of life. We come from all different areas that we're all focused on similar things. So there's a lot of overlap, of course. I'm involved in a lot of housing the homeless, foreclosure prevention, doing a lot of outreach and a lot of different activities. I'm working with a lot of different organizations. They all kind of intertwine with the work I do in Occupy. We're all here for the same cause. We're here, to draw awareness to the issues that are affecting us all, as well as bring people together around action that can, find solutions to these collective problems.
Yeah, we're actually teaming up on Mayday with a number of other organizations. We're working on migrant worker and immigrant worker rights. This one button here is from a group called One Michigan that deals with the undocumented workers. We believe that people have certain rights as humans. This isn't all about citizen rights. We have to look at people as real humans. Some of the organizations I'm part of have been splintering off a little bit, but yet they still continue to appeal to our occupying base of people, and those are things like housing is a human right. Our Free Detroit group is freedetroit.blogspot.com, and Free Detroit is working toward no consent toward this financial stability agreement, and the way that it disenfranchises our African American community here. It is going to result in a sense of people choosing to leave Detroit because they can go to any other metropolitan area and get services they can't get in Detroit because we are under financial constraints. Our bus system, for example, is going to be going through another reduction in what they have, and we've already eliminated 24-hour service. We've reduced the timing, how often the buses are being able to run, and packing the buses more with the reduced times, but people are having to stand on the corner and wait longer periods of time. As the budget is dictating more cuts, I don't know how that's going to happen, and people are not going to be able to get to their jobs. They're not going to be able to do the tasks that they have in their lives, whether it's grocery shopping or laundry. they're not going to have an opportunity to have a healthy and productive life.
Some protesters with proxy shares made it into the shareholders meeting, while approximately 2,000 of their mates rallied outside. Detroit police were fairly amiable, perhaps in light of their 10% pay cuts.
The Detroit Police Department has gone through a 10% pay reduction as a result of the Financial Stability Agreement. However, now that we have the governor influencing how the budget in the city is being ran, we believe that more and more privatization is going to happen. And I believe that there was also something to the effect of the 800 more state police are going to be assigned into Detroit. So we're going to see an increased presence from not just Detroit officers, but actually outstate coming in. It's a little bit concerning when you have the militarization of our police force. Also, we have 4 sound cannons in the policemen's supplies. I actually saw what looks like an armored car that has the Department of Transportation logo on it. I love this city. I'll fight for this city. I may be one of the last people in this city, but people may look at my skin and say, hey, you're not African American. Am I black enough? Well, my color happens to be white. It's not where my heart is, though. I need to take care of the city, and it's the people. It's not about race, and race is one of those things that's divided the city. Back in the 60s, they plowed through one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Detroit to build I-75 to promote upward mobility, taking the white people from the city and putting them into the suburbs, building the suburbs as the destination so that people could come into the city, work their 8 hours, and leave the city as fast as possible, taking with them the wealth of the city, of actually having walkable neighborhoods and livable communities and scattering them. And as we depopulate, the services that we need on a day-to-day basis are no longer available for people. And when we reduce public transit, which most of our people are financially dependent upon having mass transit, you're reducing what people can. Your mobility, I believe, is a human right. It's listed in the Declaration of Human Rights. The problem is we have the United States as one of the people that drafted that in UN back in 1948. The problem is, are we actually doing that and actually servicing the human rights that are here in the States? I don't know that we are.
What you did today is wonderful. It's a beautiful day, and this was a beautiful event.
Back to NYC for Act Up and Occupy, where the famous AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power celebrated its 25th anniversary in the same neighborhood as Occupy Wall Street was formed. A demonstration was staged in the financial district asking for a tiny Robin Hood tax on each Wall Street trade to finance treatment and services for people with HIV. The weekly People's Gong event at Wall Street, where 99ers corralled in free speech pens, rallied to counter the closing Wall Street bell with the signature mic check cadences of People Power, including the rousing chorus of Anti-Capitalista. The gathering has been an important part of spring training, leading up to Mayday and beyond. And speaking of Mayday, the week was rounded out on Saturday with Occupy Town Square's 5th event in New York City. This one held to prepare for the Mayday general strike. Saturday was also Workers' Memorial Day, an international day of remembrance and action for workers killed, disabled, injured, and sickened on the job. 99ers trained in diverse areas, from medics to civil disobedience to instruction from the National Lawyer Guild as to their rights as citizens. A fitting way to spend a day gathering strength for the first day of May. In International Workers' Day is essentially the commemoration of the 1886 Haymarket Massacre in Chicago. Workers out on a general strike for an 8-hour day had staged a peaceful demonstration. Police was in the process of dispersing the protesters when an unknown person threw a dynamite bomb at the police. In the ensuing chaos, Chicago police fired on the workers, killing several of them. A number of police officers were also killed, largely from friendly fire. Mayday has since become a focal point for demonstrations by the workers and workers' unions worldwide. Over the years, countless efforts have been made by the 1% to associate what is in fact a celebration of the international labor movement with extremist ideologies and violent actions. But the occasion continues to live in people's hearts as a symbol of popular drive to wrestle back human rights from the ruling elite. Mayday has repeatedly been associated with Russia's Bolshevik Revolution of 1917 and its leaders, in order to discourage the workers from reclaiming their rights. Right-wing governments have consistently sought to repress the message behind International Workers' Day, with fascist governments abolishing the workers' holiday. The official May 1st holiday in the U.S. was changed to Loyalty Day. Some unions and union locals in the United States, especially in urban areas with strong support for organized labor, have maintained a connection with labor traditions through their own unofficial observance on May 1st. Some of the largest examples of this occurred during the Great Depression of the 1930s, when thousands of workers marched in Mayday parades in New York's Union Square. In 2006, May 1st was chosen by mostly Latino immigrant groups in the United States as the day for the Great American Boycott, a general strike of illegal immigrant workers and supporters to protest H.R. 4437, draconian immigration legislation. Aware of the importance of this annual event in maintaining the 99%ers' dignity, rights, and livelihoods, members of Occupy Wall Street plan to hold a general strike in 2012. OWS spokesperson Diego Ibanez says the powerful thing about this Mayday is that immigrant rights groups, labor unions, the May 1st Coalition, and Occupy Wall Street have been working together and will join forces for a special day that will focus on all our struggles as workers, immigrants, students, and mothers. Despite an initial backlash from some union organizers, many unions and pro-worker advocacy groups have expressed support for OWS Mayday action. In total, more than 100 activist groups, labor unions, and other progressive organizations have pledged to participate in the rally and march. Whether workers, students, or banking customers, OWS is calling on all Americans to stop offering their labor and money to corporations for one day and join their local Occupy groups for a day of resistance. Power to the people.